To get us started with this track, I'd like to invite Chris Uglietta from data.ai up to the stage. He's going to be giving us a state of the mobile gaming, market trends, and the insights you need to know in gaming for a strong start in 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always appreciate the hype music. It's like they're teeing up the deck here. But yeah, please have your cameras ready. You can take pictures of any slides, of course, and afterwards, if you come by the booth, we can hook you up even with a link to the deck. We will not be doing any kind of Q&A in here afterwards. I encourage everyone to come to our booth just outside the door to ask any questions and have a deeper discussion. Glad to be here. My name is Chris Uglietta. I'm with data.ai. Came in from Texas. Always nice to visit London. Clicker not working. There we go. That's me. Just a disclaimer, this is no legal advice, no investment advice. It's just me. And you may have previously known us as App Annie. Now we are data.ai. Same excellent people. I'm glad to be here with our UK-based team today. But now our name, data.ai, reflects the underlying technology around how we gather data and make sure that it's tip-top, ready for your consumption.
We miss Annie.
I never got to meet Annie. But Annie and now data.ai work with a lot of great companies. This is just a handful of some of the top brands, publisher studios that trust us, and we hope you can too. So the agenda, I'm going to kind of start wide with a state of the market, mobile in general, then into gaming, then into certain genres and even games, and then we'll talk about how we can use our data and use some of these learnings to be optimistic. I know there's been another Chris who was apparently really bummer of info, and I'll do my best. I think a lot of the numbers we'll see today in any other industry that's not so accustomed to hyper growth, we'd all be pretty excited about. But in the context of the world today, I think these numbers are palatable, and I think there's something to be excited about in terms of how to manage things forward. So let's get going. Let's get stuck in. 11% download increase. That's good. 2% less spend. Of course, we don't like that. Folks are spending more time on their phones, up to 5 hours a day globally. This is for all apps, not just gaming. Up 14% in ad spend. That's a big number, and I think that's a big area. Later in the presentation, we'll talk about why I'm optimistic. And then total hours spent overall up 9% year over year. So folks are on their phones more than ever, downloading more. There was a big bump. We can see here in hours on the far right during peak COVID times, and then a bit of a recession from that. And now we're back. We're growing still. Downloads are up, spend is down, and hours are up quite a bit as well. So that's kind of the top line in global consumption in mobile games. And we'll dive in a little deep into each of them, and then we'll dive into some genres from here. So, time spent is up. It's over 5 hours globally. That's up 9% since 2020, peak COVID time, so we're past that. The chart on the right is hard to read, and that's on purpose, because I want you to come to the booth later, and I want you to download the data.ai Global State of Mobile Report, which there'll be a QR code later in this presentation you can scan to get it. But the point here is that not all geos are the same. You're going to want to dive in and see what changes are relevant to you and your business, and where should you experiment. You can only do that with a platform like data.ai. So spending has dropped. This is probably the worst number of all, but downloads are up. They're up to 90 billion. So You can see on the top the spend coming down and growth going up. The question is, how can we get folks to open their wallets again and continue doing so in this environment? Because other apps or apps, not games, are continuing to get that money. So if you take a look, the bars are disposable income, and the thin line on the top you have, and in the US, the top you have spend on gaming, the bottom you have a spend on apps. So consumers are continuing to spend on apps, and that might be because they look at what they buy and their subscriptions on apps more as bills, like their Netflix and so forth. So how do we get consumers to look at their gaming, which is entertainment, which is the same as your TV type consumption, look at that in the same bucket of that's a monthly expense, that's part of my pleasure, that's part of what I do. It's my quality of life. And taking a look here, we see that the biggest games in terms of revenue have had the biggest hit in terms of contraction in customer spend down the bottom. And as you go up to the top, the smaller games have had an easier time. And I think this is a hint that it's not just the economic recession going on. This is also IDFA, in that the bigger games have more scale and they have to be able to target more efficiently, and they just can't do that as well as they did before IDFA deprecation. So how do we work around that? In general, launching and scaling mid-core games has become more challenging. We know that, and that's again because of the targeting and also because wallet shrinkage. Now this one hurts me a lot. I'm a huge racing fan, and also used to work at Zynga and did visit with the CSR folks at Natural Motion here in London. It kills me to see that they're down 33% and the racing genre is down 28% on revenue. And this is all while downloads are up. So again, folks are wanting to play the games, but they're really not opening up their wallets. So what can we learn from, I think we'll see we can learn a little bit from hyper casual and Fall Guys around how to take care of this opportunity. But bummer to see this. I love racing. Same story with the shooter genre, down 24% while they're having increased downloads. So PUBG and Free Fire down 37%, that hurts. Call of Duty, not the best launch, but still down 24% of revenue year over year. That's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not small stuff. And finally, the action genre down 18%, while downloads are up 11. So again, players, they want to play these games. They're just not able to justify that spend, or perhaps these titles aren't able to target the right users, or they need to change their strategies to meet their targets. And this was really highlighted by brawlers and fighting. Brawl Stars losing nearly half of their revenue, and fighting games, mostly in the Western markets, like Mortal Kombat, are down 51%. So pretty scary on that regard. So some more good news. We're going to go on the upswing in that proverbial sandwich that you get. Mobile ad spend is up. It's kind of new peaks. So mobile in general is the space where advertisers see the opportunity to reach users, to reach the eyeballs in the most targeted fashion and in the fashion that returns to them. So brands want to spend here. How do we leverage that? How do we get these ads in front of the right folks in our titles? Of course, growth is not what it was, but that's to be expected, all things considered, as CPI or consumer spending in general across all verticals is down. So this is a bit of an optimistic area. Fall Guys had a heck of a year, and in general, you'll see that hyper-casual downloads are a bit recessed, but the spend is just growing. So this hybrid model of showing ads while driving users to make in-app purchases is really working for them. And I'm curious to see how we might see this grow in other genres, as hyper-casual is now reaching a very mature state, and some of these games are much deeper in multiplayer and a little stickier in the longer term than historically they've been. So some opportunities, and these are opportunities that you really need a tool like data.ai to dive in to capture. And I'm going to jump into each of these on separate slides. And these were thankfully from a podcast I did with, or webinar with Eric Kress of Deconstructor Fund, who we do a lot of work with, and they enjoy using our product. First of all, get creative. So it's literally on your creative. So creative is king. You've heard that term. It's so true. Invest in your teams there. And make sure that they're doing all of the newest things. So, focusing on player traits, testing, and diversifying your mix. We'll jump into that. Leveraging IPs, not just slapping it out there, but really making sure, doing the research through the platform to make sure that that's a match, and then testing it. And then looking beyond the US and tier 1 English-speaking geos. So getting creative, really testing all iterations of an ad. Testing it through each of your channels, really trying to increase your IPM, installs per milli, and then making sure that you're focusing on the player motivations rather than just the demographics. So in social casino, it's not just that most players are within a certain age, it's that they're motivated by the sense of calm or the sense of winning and so forth, and really showing that in your creative and experimenting and making sure that that is resonating. 2, so leverage IP. So yes, known IPs can help increase your installs per milli, but you can't just slap a cooking theme on top of a shooter game and a Gordon Ramsay shooter game, expect that to work. You need to make sure that it all works together. And that's going to start with your data. It's going to start by looking at comparable games or comparable IPs and seeing where they've found success, and then ideally working with the licensor to test this before you purchase or you sign that dotted line. And I think a lot of times in the past that's hard to do. You don't want to kind of put anything out there until it's real and everyone has signed off on it. But be creative and see how you can do that. I think for both parties to know that it's going to be a win before you go forward. Strike the right deal as well for both parties. Big win there. And then finally, look beyond the US. So this is a screenshot from our Game IQ tool where you can look through each genre and then each country by spend, downloads, any sort of metric you'd like. But it's not all just going to be US, UK, straightforward geos anymore. We're going to need to get creative to match your title, or the features even within your title, or the mechanisms for spend to the geography. So now grab your phone. This is, if you want to dive deeper, the easiest thing to do is download our latest report. It's been out for about 3 weeks. A lot of deep data on the whole mobile market. In about a month from now, we'll release a double click into the games market, and you'll be made aware of that by joining the mailing list. Let me go back. Did everyone get that? I see a lot of phones out. I'm psyched about that. We have an app. It's a free app to try. You also can do a free subscription, a free trial on the data.ai platform, just to even check that some of the things I've told you are actionable through the platform. I recommend that. And also highly recommend my podcast, Game Changers, powered by data.ai. I have a lot of great guests on there. Would love to meet with some of you. If you have an interesting technology, a strategy, or something you think the world should know about, I'd love to talk to you on the podcast. Again, there won't be any questions or Q&A right now. I'm going to head to the booth. We'll have our team there. I look forward to having a nice conversation with everyone. Thank you for listening to me.